Advocates of drug legalization and defenders of the current approach strongly disagree about what would happen if illicit drugs were made legal. Would crime, violence, and corruption decrease, as critics of the drug war believe, or would these problems only escalate? Dr. Murray says we don't have far to look to see what a world of prescribable meth, heroin, and cocaine would be like.
6.2 million Americans a year report non-medical, inappropriate use of prescription drugs. These are legal, medically prescribed, available at a pharmacy, properly controlled and tightly regulated Schedule II and III controlled substances that are out there. Controlled by the FDA, controlled by the DEA, and available under a doctor's prescription. Therefore, I posit, if I'm a legalizer, there shouldn't be a problem. And yet there is a problem. 6.2 million people getting to serious non-medical abuse potential. It is driving the admissions rate into emergency rooms. These drugs are driving the admission rate into treatment programs because they're as addictive as heroin, and people are getting them through diversion, and they're committing crimes to get them. There's a huge underground illegal market in distributing these pills. People are knocking over pharmacies with guns. People are robbing trucks of delivery. People are committing huge frauds of prescription forgery, of doctor shopping, of internet sales that are in violation of the law because they're addictive substances. The problem isn't the law. The problem and the solution is not, oh, we'll regulate. The problem is the drug. If you want to see how drug legalization would actually work, don't just go through the mirror that these people are offering for us and take a look at the other side of that mirror. Legal, prescribable cocaine, crack, methamphetamine, heroin, on the streets, well, we'd control it. The crime would be gone, the violence would be gone, and people would just take a little bit and swilling the Chardonnay on the... That's not how it works.
Yeah, you know, when people point to the fact of rising prescription drug abuse in America, it seems to me that what it's showing you is that ultimately law enforcement is not the answer. If you look in parts of the world where people are simply too poor even to buy marijuana or anything, what do? They sniff gasoline, they sniff glue, they get inhalants from the kitchen or whatever. There's no way to eliminate people using drugs, desiring that high, whether it's for recreational purposes or destroy themselves. It seems to me that ultimately the answer cannot lie in law enforcement, no matter how hard you try. And ultimately the answer lies in treating this as a medical problem and a health problem. That has to be the answer. To keep chasing our tail and increase the number of people behind bars on drug charges from 50,000 in 1980 to 500,000 today, to be arresting almost 2 million people a year, that's a ludicrous waste of money. And it seems to me that when you look at the drug czar's office today, which to my mind is analogous to the Ministry of Information in the old Stalinist Soviet Union in terms of accuracy and truthfulness, that what they essentially have been doing is to spending a lion's share of their resources on a failed law enforcement approach because they want to punish. And the bottom line, which is about helping people, about reducing disease, reducing suffering, they've almost entirely lost sight of that.
So if drugs were legalized, would drug use go up?
And I think any fair economist is going to say, yeah, if you reduce the risk and you make the accessibility and normalization of this more accessible in society, you're going to enhance the number of people who will use it and enhance the number of people who will crash and burn on it because they had a susceptibility because it turned out to be dangerous for them. Why is methamphetamine consumption less than 1/100th of alcohol consumption? One of the reasons is because it's illegal, because there are disincentives, because you have a law enforcement risk engaged in here. And one of the reasons is because methamphetamine is profoundly more damaging to the individual and to the society than is swilling Chardonnay on the veranda.
When they do surveys and they ask people, if cocaine were legal, would you use it? Something like 1% or 2% say yes, and probably half of them already are using cocaine. Now, maybe that would be different if it was being more legally available, if the fad and fashion changed. But by and large, I think the fear that illegal drug use would go up radically if drugs were legally available is vastly overstated. The vast majority of people don't want to screw themselves up with drugs. The vast majority of people are not vulnerable to doing that. The people who are vulnerable to be getting involved in drugs in a bad way, most of them are already hurting themselves with drugs, and it's more problematic because the drugs are illegal. So by and large, this notion that if we move towards legalization, America will become a drug-infested Sodom and Gomorrah, I think that's antithetical to everything we understand about human nature and the reality of American society.